reminded. Nirmal, K. and Augustina Mattoo Endowed Chair in Classical Indic Humanities at Stonybrook University's College of Arts and Science, Department of Asian and Asian American Studies. He is an esteemed, traditionally consecrated teacher of Shaiva Hindu Tantra. From 2005 to 2023, Dr. Timalsina served as Professor of Religious Studies and Philosophy at San Diego State University. He completed his PhD from Martin Luther University in Halle-Wittenberg, Germany, with a focus on the history of Advaita philosophy. His areas of teaching and research include classical Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain literature and philosophies, with a specific focus on consciousness studies. His first book, Consciousness in Indian Philosophy, is a comparative study of Advaita and Buddhist understandings of the self and consciousness. He also works in the area of tantric studies, and his recent publications, Tantric Visual Culture, A Cognitive Approach, and Languages of Images, Visualization, and Meaning in Tantras, explore the cognitive and cultural domains of tantric visualization. He has published more than 80 articles, probably more since I got this, in the areas of Hindu philosophy, tantric studies, yoga studies, and comparative philosophy. In order to disseminate philosophical knowledge distilled from the various Hindu schools of thought, he launched the Vimarsha Foundation in 2019, which hosts free semester-length courses on classic texts of the Tantric tradition and offers many free videos and written teachings. The subject of his talk today is Mantra, a talk on the theory and practice of mantra in Kashmir Shaivism. We're so happy to see you again.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you, everybody. Good to see you. Good morning. Samvarta mandalante kramapada nihita nanda shakti subhima srishti nyaye chatuskam takulakulagatam panchakam chanya shatkam Chatvarah panchakonyah punarapi chatura shodashagyabhishekam divyastau murti madhe hasakhaparakala bindu pushpa khamudra balam kaumara vriddham paramashivakala vakradevi kramanam srinatham chandrapuryam navanavakalitam yugma bhedam tusaram त्रीणि सिद्धावतारं प्रथम कलियुगे कोङ्कणे चाधिकारं तेषां वै पुत्रशिष्या नवपुरुषक्रमे तेषु मध्याद्विरष्टौ सन्तानं गोत्रपिण्डं क्रमपदसकलं षोडशान्तं क्रमान्तं शेषा वै मण्डलानि परिभ्रमविमलं पूज्यसद्भाववृन्दम् आदावष्टादशान्तं कुलक्रमसकलं मण्डलोत्थानपूर्वं संस्कारं त्रिक्रमेण पशुमलशकृत् पिण्डशुद्धि शिवाग्नौ मध्ये विश्रामभूमि प्रसरमनुभवं प्रत्ययं स्वाधिकारं संसृष्टं येन तस्मै नमत गुरुवरं भैरवं श्रीकुलेशम् संसृष्टं येन तस्मै नमत गुरुवरं भैरवं श्रीकुलेशम्. Namaskara. Swamiji gave me an assignment to speak on mantras. I'm just doing my homework. So, I understand the objective was to not just go into theory, but also to touch the practical domains, because mostly when I have come here, I have dabbled into all these lofty philosophical concepts, and sometimes I get concerned whether we are actually delivering the practical dimensions of it. And sometimes I also take it for granted that this is Vedanta society, all that is there is to know and nothing is to do. But in real life, this, already everything formula does not work. And we need a path, we need to do things from our part. We want to do things, even if that doesn't result in direct knowledge. We don't want to feel helpless from our part. And I believe that the practice of mantra may be the means to connect to that absolute that the Advaita Vedanta is teaching. And in this regard, I find Swamiji's teachings immensely beneficial, because for most scholars, they are focused on demonstrating differences or only focusing on one particular brand of Vedanta. But you all have been familiar through Swamiji's discourses or on your own, the fusion of Kashmiri Shaivism with Advaita Vedanta. And while the title Kashmiri Shaivism, which I personally do not even agree, we should call it a Trika Shaivism, because all the masters used that way, and in the later time we have used this category, but not historically. Sounds lofty, but most of the contents that we know from Trika is disseminated throughout pan-Indian culture without these titles. What Ramakrishna Paramahamsa practiced and brought to life is not just the Kevala Advaita of pure realization without love in heart, without devotion to the mother, without the presence of Kali. If you can accommodate Kali inside Advaita Vedanta, you have Trika Shaivism. That's all we are saying here. And so, I will try to get into my topic without diverging into philosophical concepts. I will introduce them only to understand the domains of mantra practice. But to get to the point, I just want to start with the premise that there's one idea that the absolute is always present there. You do not originate the absolute. It is ajata. Something that originates is temporal. Everything that has a beginning has an end. This true knowledge of the self has no beginning, because anything that starts, is born, is destined to end one time, is terminal. And the Brahman is not terminal. Therefore, Brahman has no beginning. Realization is also not terminal, also therefore has no beginning. This is the philosophical foundation. We got that. Everybody here knows that. But how to get there? After waking up, we can say the nightmare was not even real. But when we are undergoing through all those dream experiences, what is the course there? What is the mechanisms there? What practices, what can we do to get to that singular reality? The only thing Trika Shaivism said is, rather than taking the approach of this all is not real to get to that absolute, it goes one step further and says, when we think back, even those limited, terminal, finite modes of reality are the expressions of this all-empowering, ever-present, spontaneous, free consciousness itself. So, nothing to negate, nothing to embrace. The truth is always there. But there is also the path to get towards that, no negation to the path. It is both the philosophy of the goal, also of the path. So I would like to limit mantra discourse within that context. Historically, we have these concepts of the mantra coming from the Vedas. When we want to understand some concepts, we have to also not forget its history. In the Vedas, what happens? Agnimide purohitam yajyasya devam rittijam hotaram ratnadhatamam. One of the most ancient of the Vedas, the Rig Veda, begins with the hymn to Agni. And this is the invocation to Agni. The Veda says, Agna ayahi vitaye, please Agni, come here. One and another, and after that, next, all these mantras, they are used as invocation in the Vedic ritual. We actually chant these mantras and Agnaye Swaha, we make the libation into fire. In later Sanskrit, we use the words like amantrana, nimantrana, for invitation. The mantra word is there. A mantra ana. Mantra is there. Ni mantrana. So it's like mantras were invitations. Like in the very beginning, mantras were invitations to particular deities. You are such and so, please come here, please accept my offering. Some interesting conversations happened around 2000 years ago. There were philosophers like Jaimini and Yaska, and they started arguing things that most of us don't. Number one, these Mimamsa philosophers were not too enthusiastic about God, creator God. They didn't believe in some kind of creator. They believed creation as self-sufficient. The least you expect from the Vedic philosophers, They were not atheists. They believed in devas. Devas were not some almighty entity for them. But who were these devas? These devas were invited with the mantras. They come and rejoice among us and then fulfill our wishes. That was the domain of mantras in the beginning, not like for nirvana, moksha, kaivalya, those ideas slowly evolved. So in the Vedic context, when the Vedic people are making these offerings, Agnaye Swaha, and then these philosophers, they can't have it without straightforward things. So they said, how many Indras are there? There's just one Indra. Everybody is invited. Where to go, where not to go, I can prefer, okay, if the end is inviting, I'm not going to go elsewhere, I'll come here. But gods cannot just do like that. No, it was not just a simple question for them, because what is the point of sacrifice? Because the king is doing the sacrifice and a pauper is doing the sacrifice. Should the Indra, the god, go to the king's sacrifice or go to the beggar's sacrifice? You know, they took it lengthy. You can see 40 pages of conversations on where does he go. And very interestingly, they came to the conclusion that mantro vai devata, meaning it's not a body, a person somewhere in the heaven. The deity is the mantra. You utter it, you articulate it, it is present right there in front of you in the phonetic structure, in the sound, and it receives immediately. Everywhere the mantras are chanted, the deities, then is it produced? No, it is manifested. It comes to emanate at the time of utterance. And when you do not utter, they do not die. They just go back to their potential form anytime, anyway. If you properly invoke, if the mantras are thoroughly articulated, they manifest, they express themselves. This changed a lot in the field of mantra, because before the deities were outside and mantras were like prayers to them, but now mantras are the deities. Mantro vai devata, mantra is the deity. So then the new concept evolved that if mantra is deity, then it must be alive. And then they started viewing in mostly later Vedic time, and that became very prevalent in the Trikashaiva philosophy, that mantra is the deity. And it's not the words, it is the living entity, living, breathing entity that you can annoy, you can please. And then the issues came like a prana, like giving life to mantra, and mantras giving life to some entities like statues. And you know, all the deities are brought to life by the use of mantras, that mantras bring the mantras now are deities that they are so powerful, they act on their own. They are not tools to make someone happy. They are there. You could deploy the mantras for all the magical purposes. But then it went one step further. What would happen if the deity you utter is articulated through you? It is the deity inside of you. Now we slowly go to the non-dual. It had to happen. We are historically tracing to the rise of this non-dual understanding, where you become the deity. Swatma, and then when we come to the Trika, and in Shakta form of Trika, Swatmaiva Devata Prokta Lalita Vishwa Vigraha. You yourself are the deity, the goddess Lalita Tripura Sundari, of the form of the totality. So because the goddess means the totality, and you, if the deity is inside you, when you utter the mantra is in you. And then you are that deity in the body. Now the embodying deity type of concept slowly develops in this non-dual tantric philosophy, because one of the things that has happened in this European studies of Hindu philosophies is they like to see almost like a tension in all the ideas. So like one of the things they have created categories is like Vedic versus Tantric. So they are like enemies, you know, arch nemesis. So they are just the opposite of each other. But and then when you give this type of category to think through, and then you start, you know, the next gen already takes that premise as for granted, and then they continue to think. But when you read historically, you will find tremendous connectivity and a continuity in the early Vedic philosophy to Tantric philosophy, uninterrupted chain. Sometimes I even argue that maybe early Vedic philosophy is closer to Trika Shaivism than the philosophy of Shankaracharya that denies the world, the external expressions, and considers the whole thing as a projection of avidya, because that notion was not at the center of Vedic philosophy. The world was an expression. Puruha evedagum sarvam jadbhutam jachavabhyam uta amritat seshano jadanne natirohati. From the Rig Veda itself, the Purusha manifests or dismembers itself to become many. The world is the body of God. And this concept we find prevalent in the philosophy of Ramanuja, in the Vedanta front, but the same thing we find in Abhinavagupta in the Trika Shaivism. So this idea was not some remote idea developed by some esoteric tantric doing some kind of tantric practice. Not just that. This type of the totality as the deity expressing herself or himself is a concept you can find also in esoteric Buddhist and Jain traditions. Meaning, how did this concept become pan-Indian if it was not already there in the early literature? So I believe that type of historical notion survives through and through in tantric literature. So anyway, let me go back to Tantra. Or I mean mantra, because I don't want to get carried away. So the mantra is derived from the root man, and tra is a suffix. Generally, they have this etymology of manana and trana. Manana is to think, to reflect, and trana is to protect. Manana trana dharmido mantra. What the text says is mantras are the devices to protect you by means of contemplation. If you contemplate upon them, they protect you. What is the protection we need from? Protection we need is from self-negation. Self-negation is for mantra, from the mantra perspective, you are the totality. You are Shiva. But we are negating our Shiva nature to 99 point, keep putting the numbers whatever, till almost infinity, because we have accepted the being, consciousness, and even the possibility of bliss within this skin. And while I am the totality, I am not willing to experience my ever-present effulgent nature. I'm willing to experience my presence within this skin. And that feeling of the totality demands that self-consciousness transcends this bodily delimitation, bodily determination. Meaning to rediscover, it's not to find, to make, to rediscover our ever-presence, all-embracing totality. The mantras devise through the mind, because manas is also from the same root, mantra and man. The mind is the same root. You put the mantra now into the mind. The manas transforms into mantra. From the Trika perspective, as long as we are conditioned by the body, mind, and the ego, we are three different tiers of subjectivity. I am willing to either accept myself as the body, or the mind, or the ego. And we can call technically Sakala, Vijnanakala, and Pralayakala. It is just a lofty vocabulary for describing the same thing, that I am still limited in my ego or in my cognitive field activities or within my body. But as soon as I liberate my ego from within this epidermis and ela, because the mind is free to float around, right? I can sometimes imagine myself to be outside of my body, or what if I am him? Mind allows a lot freedom than the body. So then that expansion Mantra pushes the boundary of this mind and throws from this finite, limited ego to slightly emergent new form of consciousness that itself becomes mantra. Mantra, Mantreshwara, Mantra, Maheshwara are these three another highly evolved categories, taking this body-centric ego to fully evolve. So mantra is in between our total rise. So when you start mantra now, because the first model of mantra as prayer is gone now. What is it now? You become the mantra. How do you become mantra? If you go to Nepal, particularly up the mountain areas, you will see these lamas with their money, the rotating wheel. And mani padme hum, mani padme hum. So they are saying mani padme hum Sanskrit. And that's all they do. Constantly, there is no end, no beginning, like a wheel, constantly going on and on. It is the same practice. Don't worry, you are inclined to that. It is the just another word, change the word. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Let me tell you how or when you have become the mantra. If you repeat that for 10,000 times a day for maybe a week, and then you will get to the point that you want to forget it when eating, you want to forget it when going to bathroom, or you don't want to think of the mantra when you are asleep. You woke up and the mantra is running. You woke up in the morning, in the middle of the night, mantra is running, meaning your mind has, for that moment when this non-stop pulsation is going on, you have transformed into mantra. You have become mantra. That is when we call mantra Jagriti, the waking moment of mantra. Mantra Artha and mantra Chaitanya. Then what do you need? You need two additional factors. You have first done the homework of repeating insane amount of time. My Guruji used to say, if you do one Purascharana in your next birth, if you do not liberate in this life, the mantra will come to you. And the first thing I did, I want to just make sure this happens. So first I just keep counting 1 million times, so at least that part is taken for granted. I do not know whether after death it comes or not, but one thing for sure, that I don't need to sit and remember these mantras. When I'm alone or stressed or when waking up or in the middle, and then I can see that chanting never stops. So now I have come to the conclusion that the brain is not a single processor. There are multiple processing happening simultaneously. And if you repeat mantras too many times, this mantra is constantly vibrating, resonating within the deeper layers of your consciousness, and it has created such neural synapses that does not alter or erase so easily. It does create a basis of foundation. And then you became robotically chanting man. These days everybody wants to understand, so what is the point, what is the meaning? I don't know the meaning of the mantra. And am I just parroting? Most people object to this type of teaching. I'm like, don't disrespect the parrots. And because it's like a first thing to take care of is how to program this mind, because the mind doesn't want to. You want to theorize. We have theorized a lot. We want to understand these things. We have understood a lot. Just imagine if we had achieved 1% of the transformation of the amount of understanding we have had in this journey in our spiritual life. Where is the transformation coming? Where is the progression coming? How can we measure actually our progression? Can we feel the mantra comes when you are actually doing more powerful mantras like Kali mantra. Then if you are repeating different mantras, then you will know some mantras are more powerful. How do you know that? Power is like not to do some magic. Power is they put their grip on your mind and do not let you think anything else. And then you need to be a normal human being. You need to go to your university, do your job, or whatever you have, And then you have to say, can you just wait for a minute? And so then you see it's a different dialogue now. We are trying to practice. The mantra is practicing through you. You find mantra's subjectivity. Mantra is now awakened inside you, but still I do not have the meaning of the mantra. What is the point? Okay. Adimantya vihinastu mantraha seuhu saradabravat guror lakshana metavat adimantyam cha vedayat. The meaning of the mantra is the beginning and the ending. To understand the first and the last. But what does this mean? It's a little coded. The first in Sanskrit phoneme is A, and the last in the Sanskrit phoneme is Ha. And in the mantra, there is this aham, I am, I consciousness. The job, the task of a guru is to rekindle that I consciousness within you, to inflame it as if like you have this like a igniter, but you don't ignite it, it's no use. So it just, what a guru does, it just it just ignites it, and then the flame comes out. And this ignition is to recognize I consciousness in every single mantra. When forget the external cocoon, external shell, the words that we share outside, go deep into I consciousness, not just everyday I consciousness, now this transformed I consciousness that envelops your totality, takes you from this finite body-centric consciousness to all-embracing totality. That is, this, it becomes as if the sixth limb, it takes you up to this floating, like you dive down and then there is the air bubble and you just float up. The same way mantra becomes that vessel for you to take up, lift you up. That is when mantra chaitanya has occurred. But I still do not know the meaning of every word. I mean, that's a valid question, but what I'm saying is, it is what we think is most important is the least important in the practice of mantras. What is more important then is like I'm uttering Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, whatever, And then this is Vaikhari speech, the external speech. The idea was already in the Veda, Chattvari Vakparimita Padani, Chattvari Shringa Trayo Asya Pada Dve Shirshe. The idea of fourfold speech is already in the Vedas, but from Bhartrihari and particularly Abhinava Gupta and the Trika Shaivism, this fourfold speech became prevalent. The idea of mantra is it has to go to manana, to reflection. So as long as we are articulating outside, it is only working in the external corporeal level. Now we go to Upamshu, like a little whispering, it's just feeling in your throat. And then we want to take deeper to our heart, and then you just see the mantra. That is why you see, what am I saying? You are repeating, but you are not repeating with your tongue. You are repeating, you are seeing the mantra in your heart. If you see the mantra, you become Rishi. Okay, Rishi is an old concept, and nowadays people like that title or not. We have all these weird ideas of some, cavemen about rishis, But the Rishi is Rishayo Mantra Drashtara. The definition of a Rishi is the one who sees. Ri is to see. The one who sees the mantra is Rishi. It is a good thing to earn the status of Rishihood in this life, in this body. And it's not very difficult thing. Just sit on your meditation And when you are able to see the mantras without your effort, constantly articulating, you see that. Not hear, not wiggle your tongue, but just see. It's not seeing with the flesh, it's seeing within. You are a rishi. Forget the title, is a social identity. It doesn't matter whether someone considers you rishi, you live your life, whatever you are doing. That rishihood allows you, that is when you start seeing the mantras, one thing happens. There is a spontaneous pulsation of speech for something beyond sign and reference, the common sense language. And that is when you become mantra drashta. You are not just repeating a mantra. You don't have to say this is mantra, this does that, but the mantras you start seeing, because mantras are infinite, Vedas are infinite, knowledge is endless. You start tapping into such insight. This should be a good way for working on creativity. Where does creativity begin? Creativity begins in that seeing of the mantra, that inner pulsation in the mind that you are able to tap into it. Knowledge is constantly pulsating, self-revealing. Nobody reveals knowledge, just like nobody reveals the sunlight, Knowledge is constantly self-revealing, but only few people can tap it. It doesn't matter in which discipline, because every knowledge is rishi knowledge. So who is able to tap it? Who is deep enough to go into Pashyanti, the deepest level of speech, and he is able to bring that wisdom, bring that knowledge back to Vaikhari in our commonly expressed language. He has become a rishi. We have to understand, I'm not deviating from the original intent. We just clogged that with a lot of cultural haze, and we forgot the original intent of the concept, that it's a universal notion. So this mantra practice, why subtlety, why going deep, why not whispering, they don't want anybody to hear. These are all these cultural anthropology, it's meaningless. They are not trying to understand why these things are practiced in this way. So anyway, one more step. Then someone says there should still have some meaning. Our mind is always meaning oriented. Why are we so meaning oriented? It is easy to have the sign and reference relationship, so we can locate things. When the words come, we relate to it, done. But the problem with mantras and sign reference system is it immediately ejects the reality outside of you. Mantra has to do the transformation within you. Sign and reference, so reference is always outside of you. And how will the sign and reference based system ever help you realize yourself? You are not outside like walking out there. It can help you recognize the body as an external phenomena, but it will not help you recognize the observing, witnessing Sakshi self. So because mantra has to work within the level of Sakshi. So we devised a mechanism of we call Samayachara. Actually, substantial amount of work comes within Shankara's lineage, whether or not Adi Shankara wrote these ideas, but there is one Shubhagodaya Stuti, for example, and there Saundarya Lahari. So some of these works have stressed on Samayachara. The Kashmiri Shaivism or Trika Shaivism has already given plenty of philosophical foundation to develop this system. And in the text like Yogini Hridayam, we get to this sixfold meaning of mantra. But let's see how they even explain the meaning. Bhavartha sampradayartho nigarvarthascha kaulika tatha sarvarahasyaartho mahatattvartha evacha. So then now finally, okay, bhavartha, that this word means this phoneme means this, a little bit sign and reference type system. But then sampradayartha, the meaning reserved within the lineage. We are not just saying only Guru knows it. What we are saying is, if a guru has actually practiced that mantra and rekindled its energy by receiving this particular mantra from him, the mantra gets awakened quickly or easier. My Guruji used to take me to different teachers, and I hated that because I loved him and I didn't know these people. I didn't want to learn from anybody else. But then he comes from, no, you have to learn particular. This is a guy who has done only Tara for all his life. So for that practice, you should listen to this mantra from him. So that's how the sadhanas were taught. So some meanings are reserved within the lineage. But I will, instead of going one after another and taking another 4 hours, I'll just give you an example of how it works. So you have a deity, let's say Tripura Sundari. She has 4 arms and Pasha, Ankusha, Dhanus, Bana. Then she is carrying arrows and a sugarcane bow, and she has a gourd and a rope. She has, this is one of the most commonly distributed images. Her main shrine is in Madurai and everywhere these days. So the mantra, her phonetic structure of 15 phonemes, is now equated with this body. What I do, I articulate the phonemes, and the figure has to come to the fore of my mind. I create a relationship between the sound and the vision. Relation number 1. So what I do next, then there is a yantra called Sri Yantra, a 9-triangle yantra. Now I do the same thing. I articulate the phoneme, and then I establish the same relationship with the yantra, and then when I repeat the mantra, the yantra has to come to the fore of my heart. It has to come to presence. Now I have 2 references. The phonemes I'm articulating and the geometric structure right there, and then the deity image right there. But what is the deity? The deity is the totality. I cannot just have some woman in front of me and say this is my deity is present, because I have to see that deity, the image in front of me, as the totality, all the categories from Shiva to Earth, every single thing that there, I have to now develop within a single phase of consciousness, not counting all 36 tattvas, but I'm able to now see all the tattvas as equivalent to the body present in front of me. Number 3. Now I have to see my own body as a distilled form of the yantra and the deity. This body has to dissolve into the body of the deity. Now I become the deity. You all have heard the stories of Ramakrishna. I don't need to go in detail what he was doing now. Your bodily consciousness transforms into deity consciousness. And then that deity consciousness and your body consciousness and the yantra consciousness becomes the consciousness that permeates the totality, integrates your guru awareness. How does meaning work in tantric practice? This is how it works. The goal is to transform your bodily and mental presentation into the totality, and then use the mantra as a device to visualize. Therefore, we have substantial amount of visualization, imagination required. Now somebody would ask a question, this is all imagination or all fantasy consciousness, how can we ever say this is real? Then the tantric answer is, this is yet another fantasy, this is a finite fantasy, that's an infinite fantasy. You just learn how elastic the mind is. Mind is now limited to create only this much as real. Mind will tomorrow be boundless to create a totality within itself, and then you will recognize at that moment you are infinite actually. You are all-inclusive Shiva consciousness at that point. And then what happens then? Mananamayi nija vibhave निज संकोचे भामि त्राणमयी कवल्यवी सव्यप्पा अणुभुयी कावि मंत सद्धथो मरणमयी ण्यविहये ण्य संकोये भामि त्राणमयी कवल्यवी सव्यप्पा अणुभुयी कावि Manta Saddhatho. So this is Maheshwarananda in Mahartha Manjari, one of the tantric works. Beautiful. So it's just like, what is the meaning of the word mantra? It is the feeling, it is the experience, not the word, but your consciousness. What type of consciousness? The type of consciousness that circumscribes the totality. It is not a limitation in terms of sign and reference, but this is the consciousness that sees everything present as the same divine present in myriads of forms. It is not seeing God transcendent. It is seeing God present in every single leaf and every single dust particle and every single living heart. It is recognizing our own being constantly pulsating through every single heart. Every beat of the heart is the beat of Soham, that I am, that beats in me, beats in you, beats in them, beats in everywhere. The entire cosmos is vibrant, replenished with this pure surging consciousness, Shiva, and that is self-aware. This whole totality kind of rekindles within my being, and that is what it becomes mantra. Mananamai nija vibhave. When it expands, it evolves in the form of contemplation, nija sankoy. And then what happens when the mantra condenses itself, comes to this frozen state? Then it is object-oriented, goal-oriented, that is bhamithanamayi. It protects from fear. What is fear? Bhaya. What is bhaya? Diti yadvai bhayam bhavati. In the Upanishad, we know fear comes from the other. When we see difference, fear begins. The same person, I knock the door the first time I come, and Diane is like, who is this guy? You know? And then I'm like, Sarva Priyananda, there is a guy gonna come today, and then, oh, must be, are you Professor Timalsina? There is no fear. There is no weird kind of feeling, you know? So, the whole fear knows, like, look at, living in America. America is the most powerful and most scared country in the world. There's just fear from the strangers, everywhere. so this is the fear from the other. We are not able to see the other as my own expression, my own pulsation. And then as long as there is this total separation of the self from the rest of the world, fear arises. How can mantra ever protect you from fear when the other is not the other but the very expansion of your being? There is no fear. We are never scared of ourselves, This is the other becomes an extension of ourselves. We feel comfort. We feel like long lost family coming back home. And there is this sort of singularity of consciousness. It doesn't need to be just some theory in some remote monastic practices. It can be brought to life. We can exercise this in our everyday mantra practice. Now we'll need a few examples. So where is it? How is it taking then? Because now let's go to how we create reality and how mantra helps us transform that reality. The first thing we need to go to the very notion of reality is to what extent it is composed by language. Because we are so used to thinking that the job of language is to describe what is there. But we all know that language does not just describe what is out there. We know that language oftentimes creates reality. How does it create reality? Let me give you two examples. Someone asks you, "Are you hungry?" You say, "No." And then you are not upset. You are not insulted. Someone asks you, "Are you stupid?" I mean, you could just simply say no, and then just like, yeah, and the job done. Why is that job done? So the person asks, "Are you stupid?" And then, "Why are you upset?" "Are you stupid also?" So the word meaning, the meaning is not anything more. You see? It created a new reality. It was not just about referring to what it is. It didn't describe the phenomena. Look at the new realities that language creates. Beyond sign and reference. The sign and reference is, "Are you hungry? Are you stupid?" So we know the meaning of the word. We are not. Job done. No, but it is not how it works in language. Language creates a new reality. Beyond sign and reference. So we take this idea a little more seriously. And if you go how realities are shaped in different cultures, how emotions are educated in different cultures, you will realize that language is not just about representing, but about creating. And we are taking a liberty of that aspect of language, not just a representational model of language, but the creative domain of language, to come back to our own consciousness and to work through language to reconstitute, reshape our own consciousness. We are passively shaped by language. We are not actively shaped by language. Meaning, we learn language, we get educated, mostly indoctrinated, whether in school or colleges, and then churches or temples. We are told to become something. What we do not have is the freedom to take that language back and take it to its heart, to the core of where does that self-construction begins, to go to the core of the ego and use that language as a device to reconstitute yourself. Reconstitute not in the image that somebody else wants, but why cannot you reconstitute within the image of the totality, that you become the possibility itself, like replenished with possibility, filled with possibility. You become everything. Language allows you to deconstruct the given ego, to reimagine your own subjectivity, and to rediscover yourself. Without language, you are nothing. Even when Guru says, "Tattvam asi," you are that, you still need that language. It is not just a description, because then you already need something in front of you if it is just a sign and reference, because this word has to take you to the new knowledge. What does new knowledge mean? Meaning the reference you did not already have. How can, if you simply understand this based on sign and reference, it's just like you said this is a cow, the same way you are that, so what is that? It's not something you can indicate. It's not an object. You can never objectify the Brahman. So therefore, even this Tattvamasi has to work through the same mechanism of the mantra, that it has to go and reconstitute your ego. And it has to you have to allow yourself to dissolve the pre-given ego. The same process that it has to work in this rediscovery of the self as the totality. And that is how mantra is supposed to work. That is what we call the Shabda Tattva, the absolute truth as such, Tattva as such, in the form of speech. So, in modern philosophy, they have argued, post-Derrida and all, about the written word versus the speech, and all the conversations on logocentrism, and this is like all the gender studies and every single thing. What we have felt is like written word, we have to give prevalence to that. I would still go back and argue for the articulated and lived embodied domain of speech. The speech you write out in the book, it has nothing, no value. It has to live within you. If you see the way these practices are done, so do you, if you don't know the tradition, then maybe you do, but if you want to practice mantra, you don't just go and Google, let me find some mantras, You want to know who has practiced this. If it is about correct information, maybe Google might have better information today than many teachers. But it's not about the veracity of objective fact. It is about the livedness of the speech that resonates from the heart of the teacher to the heart of the disciple. And we do not consider the power within that objectified word, but the power within lived word. The word is lived by the master, resonated in his heart, is transferred through speech articulated in the heart of the disciple. Many people, so many of his students, they like to see they are highly evolved category of, yogic practitioners, and they are not cut out for these small practices like mantras, because they have this, already Vedanta realization and all. And I don't blame them, because, sometimes Vedanta can give a very inflated ego. But there is not just one layer in which mantra works. We have 3 upayas, means in the Trika system. There is the anupaya, no upaya, the upaya of no upaya. Let's not even talk that. But the first is the anaba upaya. I'm going through the anaba one. What is it? Your ego is finite within the body or the mind. You are a limited being. This is our most common experience. So within that, you repeat the mantra, and then just like when I said you get to the level of the mantra itself, meaning you become the mantra, or meaning when you think of yourself, the mantra resonates. Or you cannot always control the mantra. Mantra keeps pulsating through you in your heart. You have gotten the status of the mantra. In that Andava has cracked within you. Andava state, the mantra repetition, you articulate, you have the external mantra, external deity, all these external objects and subjects relations, all these you have cracked through. You have gotten the first step of Andava practice. Everybody can see that, okay, in this level, beginners can do mantra practice. But I don't think it can go for higher level, like a Shakta or Shambhava Upaya. But wait a minute. In the Shakta, what is the Shakta Upaya? Is a purely deeper contemplation to retrieve your consciousness from the field of objects to pure consciousness, even transcending your ego or subjectivity. And as we discussed, the mantra practices slowly goes down to Pashyanti level. That is what we are doing. We are not doing a sign and reference word and meaning thing anymore. We are simply taking the word back to resonance itself, to pure consciousness itself. And mantra, it doesn't matter which mantra, any of the mantras, we are taking that back to the pristine heart of consciousness, and then it is working through Shakta Upaya, because it is the mantra as an object first you start from, and mantra becomes the subject. Already from objective field to the subject domain, you have brought mantra back from the external field to pure consciousness, and that is when mantra becomes the Shakta Upaya. Now you see the mantra itself. There is no temporal order even. Even the long mantras, they just start appearing in a single flash. And there is no succession. There is no krama. And then there is no ego. There is no subject and object. Mantra weaves both subject and object at the same time. And that flash of self-consciousness in which the totality is circumscribed, you get to the Shambhava Upaya. I need the method for how to work in Shambhava. No, it is not how it works in real practice. In real practice, this very mantra can take you. You start from anava state of simple routine life, repetition this many times, and then the focus has to go deeper. Rather than being intellectual and finding all kinds of weird meanings for every word, or this word means that and all of that. Ganapati means the ear and the head and the mouse and all. This will never help you go deeper. That's why I'm saying it may mean all of that. It doesn't matter. But when you use this template to go deeper to the core of your consciousness, at the end, the mantra manifests as a totality, akhanda, meaning fractureless, non-dual, singular, partless. This akhanda artha, the meaning, that is, there is no separation between shabda and artha, meaning word and the meaning, and it becomes this non-dual expression of the totality. And then whatever Bhartrihari, he was a great yogin. He wrote a philosophy of grammar. And most people just think he's just a grammar philosopher. He was a great yogin. So when he's teaching philosophy of language, he says, Shabda Purva Yoga. He says that what he's teaching is Shabda Yoga, the yoga through word or speech. So this Shabda Yoga, how does the Shabda Yoga work? He says, Anadi Nidhanam Brahma Shabda Tattvam Yadaksharam Vivattat Ertha Bhavena Prakriya Jagato Yataha. This Brahman that has neither beginning nor an ending, that is of the character of speech, Shabda Tattva. The truth as it is self-pulsating, self-vibrating vimarsha, the word, it's self-referring consciousness. That's what Shabda is. It's not Shabad, is not just the expressed word, but the Shabad is the inner resonance wherein the ego, the self, vibrates within its own true form. This is Akshara, on decaying. That vivartate is not a false manifestation. Vividha akarena vartate, meaning it manifests in the myriads of forms, infinite forms. Look at these infinite forms of speech manifesting, speech resonance, this vibration, the whole world. There is a book called Spanda Karika from the Trika system. This is the essential teaching of Spanda, pulsating, the doctrine of vibration. Then following this philosophy, the entire totality is pulsating. From the atomic, subatomic level to the gigantic cosmic level, from our own finite embodied lived state to every social structures or conceptual structures like government or society or all these abstract concepts, everything is pulsating, vibrating. And this is of the character of Shabda Tattva. We have created so many new realities like president, government, market, stock market, dollar bill. All these are words. Not like the rock, even if you do not call the rock, that thing will still be there. But if all the society stops using the word government, there is no government, It's just not a substantial thing there, physically out there. We create reality on top of reality, and only the physical thing is real. That theory doesn't work, because where we live in our everyday life, our own constructed reality is not any less powerful than the physical mass that physicists like to call as real. Our reality, we lived in this twofold reality, the reality of the tangible world and the reality of our own creation. Our own reality, that the reality we create with our own construction, is the construction by means of language. You take language out, there is no construction. Language is creating this whole reality. The reality that is out there is not the reality that is hurting us. The reality that we have constructed is the reality that is hurting us. The ego, the finances, the life and the death, all these things that we have tapped into, our own ego, power, money, richness, our social relations, family relations, spousal relations, all these are our semantic constructions. Our language has allowed us to create these realities. This is what is hurting us. The house there as such is not my problem. When I go there, I assume this is where I have rented for my. I had that experience. Go to Hawaii, they just tricked me into renting an address that doesn't exist. So and that is the reality that hurts. The house is not a problem. The only problem is the reality that was sold to me. That is the problem. So the problem side of human reality is the very human construction. That human construction is by means of language. And what can we do to deprogram or to deconstruct that program? That program language is, we need a meta language. We need a reprogramming. How do we do that? How can our consciousness reprogram our reality? We cannot just reprogram the external reality. That is like revolutions in Nepal. Every time change the government, change the constitution, and expect something is going to happen. You need to reprogram your ego. The people, the person, the way we think about ourselves, collectively and individually. As long as the ego is not reprogrammed, it doesn't matter how many times you try to readjust the external reality, it is not going to work out. In relations also, in national and international or personal relations, it is always the same thing. So do not take mantra as some kind of prayer we sit and do sometimes, but my final point is take mantra as a mechanism to re-engineer the whole thing. What do I mean by the whole thing? The first thing is me, the ego, that what I believe I am is insufficient, utterly insufficient. I need to expand it. I need to grow up like a little child, So and unfortunately, this growing up has gone the reverse way, because before the rise of the mantra, the finite limitation, the infants do not have that delimitation of the ego within the epidermis. The more we culture these kids, the more small they come out to be, the more egocentric they come out to be. And so we have to deculture them and reconstitute the ego, and the external reality will reconstitute in the same process. It's like co-arising through and through, like Nagarjuna said. The external reality co-arises in relationship to my own ego, my own subjectivity. When I am willing to transform my subjectivity the way I see reality starts changing, stops its power basically, So how do we make a real progress through mantra? Because there are different types of mantra, coming back to again the core notion of the mantra, like some Kshudra mantra, you do this mantra and then something magic will happen, some healing will occur, but there are these Maha mantras or Mahavidyas, and these are the most standard system developed during the time when all these contemplative practices were just in their rise. And this is pan-Indic tradition, not just limited to Trikashaiva only, because most of them utilize the same original proto-philosophy that already existed in the Vedic time. We tweak a little bit here, tweak a little bit there. And if we were to trace back, even historically, it is very insightful. But for many of you, if you are interested in some references, I also have 2 or 3 entries on mantra itself for Brill Encyclopedia, another small entry on Shakti, and then there is a book by Padu, Andre Padu and Vach, VAC, really good book. I always recommend that book by Padu. But as Diane was kind enough to say about Vimarsa, I have started Vimarsa with an understanding, repeatedly going back and forth to Nepal and India with an understanding that there is so much of change, and some is good, but a lot of cultural appropriation, and even those who call practitioners, the type of limitation in control and or misrepresentation. And I just thought, not that I am the best one to represent the system that is too egocentric to say that, but the best of my ability, I realized that I need to do it. I need to make it available to everybody, whichever the family they are born into. And let's see, let's hope we can take this further. But then I must say that we must have some time for Q&A. Can I stop now so that we can give more time for conversation? Thank you so much. I really appreciate again. But yeah, I'm happy to have as much as conversation as time allows. Please, I'll take first question there. Maybe we have the microphone.
Hello, Acharyaji, that was beautiful. Thank you. My name is Hani. I come from the Sufi tradition, and I think mantra is not only pan-Indic but really universal. And your talk really resonated a lot with what I hear in our own tradition about zikr, which is our mantra practice, could become a universal practice that brings all traditions together to deepen that understanding. My question is actually slightly unrelated, but closely linked, and that is around music. And what role potentially does music have in Trika tradition in conjunction with mantra, if at all, both being based around vibration and pulsation, and using that as technique to achieve the same goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, the universal domain of mantra or something different name called in different culture. That's very nice thing to say. What we call music, one using external device, and another using your body, yourself as the device. One is singing and another is playing lute or whatever other instruments. They developed, now coming back to mantra context, they developed in the context of mantra practice itself, in the Sama Veda. The first original, these 7 notes of music, what in India we call sa, ri, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni. These 7 notes are needed for proper articulation of sama. And so the external lute, Veena, was a depiction of the human body, and whatever the human body tongue can articulate these 7 notes, the external lute was supposed to articulate or express those very notes. And so the external body, or this is the living, breathing being, consciousness, and then the external lute were to correlate actually. And then in this correlation, where is the mantra working? Mantra is supposed to work in different resonance, not just the repetition, but there are therefore 2 different ways for the mantra chants, like when in some cases we are only articulating the words, but in other cases, like when you are doing om, 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 but then there is a om, a proper or and giving a different stations for the articulation. How does it work towards transformation? Most of the research now being done in the field of musicology, we can relate to that in the practice of meditation, because Nada yoga, the yoga of Nada, sound, resonance, is the key to connect these external music forms to the inner sound transformation. So the yogins, particularly during the Natha yoga development, they take to the extreme that they develop the concept of Navana, the 9 different resonance, and the 10th soundless sound, the absolute sound of no sound, is what you are supposed to reach by means of hatha, the struck sound, to anahata, unstruck sound, that is the blood coursing through your veins, and you can hear if you close your eardrums, not now because I want you to listen to me, but when you are on your own. So this type of sound resonance, it can go deeper and deeper, more and more subtle layers, and that opens up a different thing. Number 1, the meter. Chandas. The Vedas always follow a particular meter. But not just the Vedas, even the tantric mantras are invoked in the beginning. This mantra is in this particular meter. And these are the same meter, by the way, the Vedic or the tantric. And so the Vedic mantras in particular, you can clearly see Gayatri. Now there's, Gayatri mantra, everybody, the Gayatri is a deity. Gayatri originally is the name of the meter. A particular way of chanting. So that very particular way of chanting became so prevalent, she became the goddess. We forgot it is the name of the meter. Gayatri, Trishtup, Anushtup, all these different names of different meters. They're particular ways of chanting. Then what they discovered really early on, like before Bharata's Natya Shastra, before the beginning of the Common Era, that we can see that they were familiar with this raga and alapa. And they say, what does raga do? They found the Bhairavi raga. You can chant Anushtup meter into different ragas. The same meter, you chant different, you sing differently. And it has a different psychological, psychosomatic effect. Bhairavi, more vibrant, powerful, Kalyani, or so whatever the other ragas you are chanting into will create different moods. In tantric temples, therefore, in the morning offering and the evening offering, they always play different ragas. Again, the season-wise, when you are making the offering to the deity in the spring season, then there is a different ragas being played. Like we have, there is a particular note played, and then we know the Sharad Ritu, like when the Navaratra, we just had a month ago, and when it begins, then all the temples start playing the same raga, and then, this is the beginning of the autumn. And so this is based on seasons also, based on mood, based on time also. So the resonance, not just the power of articulation, but also the ways they are articulated, they affect our domain of consciousness. Thank you so much. We have a question down there, and then there also, yeah.
Thank you so much, Acharya ji, for a great lecture. So you started with telling us how mantra takes us to a non-dual awakening. But we all know that mantras, how they are performed, are basically a devotional worship expression. So I want to bring it back on how mantras, going all the way to the non-dual awakening, can be also used for bhakti yoga in the right way.
Right. So, for example, what has happened is there is not just one particular mantra, there are infinite mantras. There are some mantras that we are supposed. So nowadays a lot of things happening due to, I am against those, a lot of practices happening here, conservatively speaking, because there are some mantras that you are supposed to articulate on your own and go inside. These are mantras as a device for meditation. But there are other mantras, they are supposed to be used for chanting as a kirtan. Not just, they didn't just happen today. Like the Giti meter goes way back. They are supposed to be sung. The word Gita in common Indian languages means sung. That's why, where comes Gita? It's a book of singing. Ram Gita, Ishwar Gita, Guru Gita. All these are to be sung. So all the Anushtup meter, the particular chandas, the meter in which these things are written, these are mantras. Hare Rama, Ram Ram. This is again in the meter that we are supposed to articulate out. So due to misunderstanding, what is happening is when we try to use these whole phonetic structures into mental visualization, like a Gayatri is also to sing. Tat savitur varenyam bhaggo devasya dhimahi dhiyu. Like if you have a mantra like expanding 5, 7, 9 letters, you are starting practice, you can go very easily. If you were to do tat savitur varenyam only, you can meditate on it without any difficulty. But even within these 24 phonemes, your mind will be divided in 3 places already. Because there is a break. Tatsavitur varenyam bhargo devasya dhimai. There is a break, and the break mind deviates. So there are some that are meant for just inner verbalization, and there are others that are used for singing. Shabad, they are for singing. But again there, you will find some that are not just supposed to. Just like you can use Naam. For example, Kirtan, you can use Naam only for inner resonance. It goes both ways. So therefore, it depends on sometimes length, sometimes meter, but mostly the way it is mandated by the Guru. So therefore, what is so unique about mantra tradition, I should say that it is not just about information preserved in some remote past. It is lived. Therefore, you have to have a guru. Lived. It has to be lived through. So it's the guru knowledge, again, given by guru. And so that is where, as prescribed by the teacher, you have to do accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you for the great talk. Name is Rathit. My question is around if you could talk a little bit about how when you do japa and chant your mantra from different chakras, like if you focus on the heart center or the throat chakra, etc., how does the impact of the mantra change?
So, let's go to, most of you have done the Mandukya Karika with Swamiji. And so in that, I'm sure you remember waking consciousness, dreaming consciousness, and deep sleep consciousness in the heart. And so waking consciousness in the Dakshinakshi Mukhe Vishwa, Taijasa, Pragya, if you still remember those categories. And so the waking consciousness, generally when you are awake, it's like a prefrontal cortex, okay? Let's forget the Dakshinakshi Mukhe Vishwa. That is too technical a word for you. Yeah, I just say prefrontal cortex and it will help you. So your waking consciousness is determined by language, and that is where when you think of yourself, you are focused up here, around here. And then when you take it little deeper, you go to your throat area down around this, Vishuddha chakra area. and then maybe even another area. So that is when you enter into dreaming state. That's where all the dreams are made. When consciousness drops down a little bit, and when consciousness rises up from this throat area to the eyebrow area, you wake up. When consciousness drops down from the eyebrow area down to the throat or the little chest area, and then you go to this dreaming mode of consciousness. You already have different chakra there, right? What if you could take down to the pulsating heart, or even below to the Manipura area, to the navel level? Within that, there's not a particular, this chakra is that. It's a roughly within that periphery, within that region. And then the speech suddenly stops and you go to this deep sleepy state. Can you retain mantra even in deep sleep? How can you go to deep sleepy state if you retained mantra? My Guruji, Swami Khaptar Baba, said that this is because I was like, although he passed away as 114 and he maintained his practices, sadhanas all the way through. You can check about Khaptar Baba. Yeah, I'm not telling you some stories. He's a historical being, he has books left behind. So I used to ask all the questions as a boy, all the rude questions, every single thing. He was very generous to explain. And then I'm like, you are an enlightened being. How can you sleep? That's one of the questions I asked him, really, How can you, if you sleep, then you are like me. I also sleep and come to illusion and dream. So it's like self-awareness and the mechanisms of the body are not the same. The body needs its limited amount of sleep state and dream state. It's a mechanism for the body to maintain itself. That doesn't mean that you have to lose your self-awareness. In that state, so what he said is like you go to the mechanism is as taught by Gaudapada is just to go even to the deep sleep state, but take mantra. Like he uses only Om as a mechanism to explain waking, dreaming, deep sleep. Gaudapada, I'm talking about Gaudapada. He uses mantra. And then he says going to the Turiya state, the resonance as the fourth, the Turiya state. He actually is not philosophizing things. There is a deep practice going on. What is the practice? Within that very resonance of we are just always thinking of Ma. My Guruji taught me to go reverse way. Already who is down there in the arm, and you are feeling in your navel area more like so it just takes you from waking consciousness to dreamlike consciousness to deep sleep consciousness. And what if you were to take it further deep into pure being of resonance? You are in this para, the fourth speech of the Vats. There is no sign and reference. There is no subject and object. There is just a singular consciousness, non-dual realization right there by the very articulation of Om. So that is how we take mantra from the external form or the different chakras to mostly subtle form of the mantra, and then inner resonance to beyond the resonance to pure consciousness. It does help in that way. Thank you so much. Down there.
Thank you, Acharyaji, for the inspiring discourse. So many of us here are initiated, have mantra diksha. Can you please advise and elaborate on how we can reach the state of mantra jagrati or japa ajapa, where the mantra continues unceasingly even when we are engaged in complex intellectual tasks?
Thank you so much. That's a very practice-oriented question. I like it. One of the things we have to take on face value that if you go to these states, these awaken, we have these fantasy-driven ideas that you go to samadhi and then you are done and you are enlightened and all, or otherwise you are just doomed. This is not my experience. It's we keep fluctuating. That's my experience. Is like you are the loving person and then also sometimes the very nasty guy. So it is the same way that this self-realized samadhi mantra states also happen to us. We go through these deep realized modes of consciousness and then float out to everyday mundane states of being. So having said that, how can we use, knowing the mechanism of mantras, how can we use for going into this deeper level of consciousness? One, of course, to understand the mechanism of the mind, because most of us have understood this is mantra, I'm going to repeat it, but we have strong predispositions. We have some karmic predispositions. We need to do certain things. And what we are doing is we are na bhuktaha kshiyate karma kalpa koti satairapi. As long as you are not able to consume the karma, it is not going to vanish by your wish in a long time. You have to find a means to resolve the tension within your heart of all these stored karmic accumulation. And once we start addressing that karmic wealth or loss, only then mantras, it will be easy for the mantras to play through you. Now, first what happens, we are bringing the mantra. We are trying to domesticate a tiger. Why most people, I do Kali and then you can see they go Kali, So why does that happen? It's like you do not know how to drop this ego, to surrender to the being presence of this mantra, and then we are using it to control ourselves, repeating and repeating. The more you repeat, I have many students saying, Acharyaji, you give me this mantra and I repeat it and it makes me really angry. That's very sincere student. I acknowledge sincerity in that. Why is it happening? Because there is such a strong karmic pull and the person has decided, no, I don't want to be carried by the karmic pull. Now, you have to figure out two things needed. One is the shamatha, pacification, how to calm or cool down those predispositions. And simply mantra may not be able to take care of everything. One is you are doing Sravana Manana Nididhyasana, contemplation on true nature of the self. The more we hear these Vedanta teachings, the more it gets easier to not be too determined for all these things that we want to happen or we are against happening, because all our anticipations and predispositions give us tremendous frustration, and our habits are made based on our samskara predispositions, and so we have to work through those samskaras, and we cannot burden every single thing to the mantra practice alone. And then one mechanism is the process of philosophical contemplation, realization. Another is a simple pacification process, and another is also fulfillment. I'm up to, because from the tantra perspective, we do not believe in repressing all your expectations and dreams. We want to see, we want to explore what is rightfully we can. The original ethos of the Aryans, what the four purusharthas, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, you make artha, you prosper, and then kama, you fulfill your desires. And then we are simply trying to get moksha and then saying, oh, I don't need artha, I don't need kama. But we are built that way. This body is built that way. Our ego, our subjectivity is built that way. We are acting against our nature, the way we are made. Either we have to have such realization that the process through which we are built, we transcend it, or if we are not so strong to deviate the entire mechanism through which we are made, we surrender, we drop, our practices collapse. Why do they collapse? Because I want this, I want that, and then I also, so many things I want to be a billionaire, and I want to be most powerful guy, and by the way, I also want to go to heaven or become enlightened, That's just when self-realization becomes yet another criteria, like, the bucket list, it's not going to work out. When truly speaking, if in our heart there is just only single bucket list of liberation, then there is no conflict. But that's not the case with all of us. We have anticipations. Then we have to act towards realization, actualization of some of the most acceptable forms of those anticipations and desires, accepted modes of embracing those desires and fantasies. So when we deny everything for us and say mantra is everything for you, it is like, bitter melon, like somebody comes to our house and then we offer only little bit of bitter melon. This is all you can eat. If you are offering so many different dishes, and that can be really good food if somebody knows how to cook those things, but otherwise, it's just bitter is bitter. The world is a bitter melon. You need to know how to cook it, and it can be okay. It can be tasty. It can be. Thank you so much. I have two questions there. Oh, I think we are going out.
Do you want to take one more?
One last question, because you gave me alert last. So I'll take only one, okay? Thank you.
Okay. My name is Prashant. The word or the sound Om is very mystifying for me. And most of the mantras I have learned in my childhood, various things, everything starts with the Om Namah Shivaya or Om Namo Aryantanang, etc. Mm-hmm. Could you just guide me a little bit on that?
So, why did we put this Om as a singular resonance? There are many, many, many theories, some people are also giving, I got one video recording of the sound of the sun itself, I don't know, those are not my understandings. But the thing is, one single sound in which we saw the totality of sounds dissolved. Within this Om, we say all the phonemes come out of this A, and so are dissolved within this A, Om. Within Om, the totality. So that is why in the Bhagavad Gita, Om Tat Sat Iti Nirdeso Brahmanas Trividamita. So there are three words, Om and Tat and Sat, and then we say this is the totality, the synonyms for the totality. So when we are using Om, how many different ways we can use to visualize the triadic. Everything in Om is a triadic structure and the transcendence. Uma, what is the meaning? It can mean anything. You want to say waking, dreaming, deep sleep consciousness. You want to say the gods of creation, sustenance, dissolution. You want to say the Rig and Yaju and Sama, three Vedas. Or in whatever structure you give, our consciousness first adopts a triadic structure to relate to the world, subject, object, and their relationship, because Om can relate to every single triadic structure and its transcendence. Therefore, we have used Om as the most common sound, and actually for all the dharma traditions like Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh, all these traditions consider Om as the sacred word. Thank you so much. I know we have to stop on point, and thank you everybody for your kind presence and engagement, and so we should stop at that point. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Indeed, a master class in mantra. It really was. Thank you. I think we'll all take a lot away from this. So now we should be
Of course,